The millionaire needed an assistant, but he never expected the chaos in the form of a woman. No one noticed her at first. That was the part that hurt the most. She stood just outside the glass entrance of Blackridge Global, clutching a worn leather folder to her chest as executives in tailored suits streamed past her like she didn't exist. Some glanced at her shoes, scuffed at the toe. Others looked at her hair, neatly tied back but clearly done at home, not by a stylist. One man nearly collided with her, frowned and muttered, "Watch it," as if she were furniture placed incorrectly. She whispered a quiet apology anyway. Lena Morales had learned early that apologies were safer than explanations. The building rose above her like a monument to power, 47 floors of steel, glass, and money. Inside worked Victor Hale, the billionaire CEO whose companies span logistics, renewable energy, and international finance. A man the media called ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. And today he needed an assistant. Lena inhaled slowly, steadying her hands. This wasn't just another interview. This was the last one she could afford to attend. 3 rejections already. Rent overdue. Her mother's medical bills stacking up like silent threats. The bus pass in her pocket had exactly 2 rides left. She smoothed her blazer, the only professional jacket she owned, and stepped forward. The revolving door betrayed her immediately. It spun faster than expected, catching her bag strap and yanking her forward. Papers flew. A pen skidded across the marble floor. Lena stumbled out into the lobby, heart pounding, face burning as laughter rippled nearby. "Well," a sharp voice said, "that's one way to make an entrance." Lena dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather her resumes. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, not even sure who she was apologizing to. Her fingers shook as she reached for a page labeled Operation Strategy, Harvard Extension Program. A pair of polished black shoes stopped in front of her. "Careful," the man wearing them said coolly. "These floors aren't cheap." She looked up. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and immaculately dressed. His suit fit like it had been stitched onto him. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between irritation and mild amusement. Dark eyes assessed her quickly, clinically, like she was a problem to be solved or dismissed. Yes, sir," Lena said quickly, standing. "I'll be out of the way." He didn't move. "You're here for the assistant interviews?" he asked. "Yes," she said, nodding. "With HR, Lena Morales." He raised an eyebrow. "You're late." Her stomach dropped. The bus, there was construction. "Excuses don't inspire confidence," he said flatly, already stepping past her. "This company runs on precision." The words landed like a slap. "I understand," Lena said softly, though her chest ached. "It won't happen again." He paused, glanced back at her, and gave a short, humorless smile. "We'll see." Then he walked away. Lena stood frozen in the center of the lobby, humiliation crawling up her spine. Around her, people whispered. A receptionist watched with thinly veiled judgment. She wanted to leave. She wanted to disappear. But she thought of her mother, lying in a hospital bed, pretending not to be in pain so Lena wouldn't worry. She thought of the nights spent studying after 12-hour shifts, the professors who told her she was wasted potential, the managers who assumed she was just admin material. She squared her shoulders. No, not today. At the HR desk, a woman barely looked up. Name? Lena Morales. Pause. A click of keys. Conference room C. No smile. No welcome. Lena followed the hallway past glass offices where men and women debated million-dollar decisions. She caught fragments of conversation. Mergers, acquisitions, losses that could buy her family a house. Conference room C was smaller than expected. Functional. Cold. 3 people sat at the table. 2 men in dark suits. 1 woman, impeccably styled, tapping her pen impatiently. "You're the last one," the woman said. "Sit." Lena did. They asked standard questions at first. Experience. Availability. Strengths. Then the tone shifted. "You don't exactly fit the culture here," one man said, glancing at her resume. "You've jumped industries a lot." "I adapt quickly," Lena replied. "It's allowed me to develop a broad skill set." The woman leaned back. "This position supports a very demanding executive." "I'm aware," Lena said. "I've supported crisis operations, coordinated international teams, and managed schedules across 5 time zones." The man snorted quietly. "From a community nonprofit?" Lena met his eyes. "Yes. With a budget smaller than your coffee fund." Which meant mistakes weren't an option. Silence. Something flickered across the woman's face. Interest, perhaps. Mr. Hale will decide, she said finally. He likes to meet candidates himself. Lena's heart jumped. Today. Now. They led her upstairs. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, Lena stepped into a private floor, quiet, expansive, intimidating. The office at the end of the hall had a single name etched into glass. Victor Hale. Her pulse thundered. Inside, sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows. Victor Hale stood near the desk, speaking into his phone. No, he said sharply. Pull the deal. If they can't meet ethical compliance, we walk. He ended the call and turned. Recognition flashed in his eyes. You, he said. Lena swallowed. Yes, sir. The lobby incident, he continued. Gravity seems to be a problem for you. Her cheeks burned. I assure you it's not a recurring issue. He studied her for a long moment, then gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. She did. You're underqualified on paper, he said bluntly. And overconfident for someone in your position. I disagree, Lena replied quietly. That earned her his full attention. Explain. She lifted her chin. I'm not overconfident. I'm prepared. I've been underestimated my entire life, and I've learned that if I don't speak clearly for myself, no one else will. The room went still. Victor leaned back, steepling his fingers. Interesting. He flipped through her file. You turned down 2 higher-paying roles. They required me to compromise my values. And what values are those? Respect. Accountability. And not treating people like they're disposable. His jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. Do you know who you're talking to? He asked. Yes, Lena said. A man with more power than most people will ever see. And someone who just ended a deal because ethics mattered. That stopped him. For the first time, Victor Hale smiled, not politely, not performatively, but with something like surprise. You're observant, he said. It's part of the job, she replied. He stood, walked to the window, looked out over the city. I need an assistant, he said slowly. Someone who can handle chaos. Someone who won't crumble when rooms get hostile. He turned back to her. But understand this, he added. This job will break you if you're not strong enough. Lena rose to her feet. With respect, sir, she said evenly, I've already survived worse. Silence stretched between them. Then Victor Hale did something no one in that building expected. He laughed. A deep, genuine sound. Congratulations, Ms. Morales, he said. You start Monday. Her breath caught. However, he continued, eyes sharpening, there's something you should know. She braced herself. This job, he said, comes with complications. What kind? She asked. The kind that will make powerful people very uncomfortable. Lena didn't hesitate. Then I'm exactly who you need. Victor studied her, then nodded once. He had no idea how true that was. They thought she was just an assistant. Until the first wall cracked. By Monday morning, Lena Morales already knew one thing for certain. Blackridge Global did not forgive weakness. She arrived 40 minutes early, standing in the executive corridor with her tablet pressed to her chest, silently rehearsing the day's schedule. Her heels clicked too loudly on the marble floor. She made a mental note to walk softer. Every movement here was measured, judged, catalogued. This wasn't a place that welcomed people like her. It tolerated them until it didn't. The moment Victor Hale stepped out of his office, the energy shifted. Conversation stopped. Phones lowered. Assistants straightened their posture instinctively, like soldiers when a general entered the room. Morning, he said curtly, already moving. Lena fell into step beside him without missing a beat. Your first meeting is with the Zurich board in 12 minutes. I've prepared an amended agenda based on last night's compliance update. Victor glanced sideways. You worked on that after hours? Yes. Why? Because it needed to be done. Pause. Good, he said simply. That single word sent a strange warmth through her chest. She pushed it aside immediately. Approval was dangerous. It made people careless. By noon, she'd already handled 3 scheduling disasters, intercepted a hostile journalist call, and prevented a senior executive from storming into Victor's office unannounced. Still no one thanked her. Instead, whispers followed her. Who hired her? She doesn't look the part. Probably temporary. At lunch, Lena ate alone at her desk, reviewing notes. She didn't notice the woman standing there until a shadow fell across her screen. Excuse me, the woman said coolly. You're in my seat. Lena looked up. The woman was tall, elegant, and dressed in a cream blazer that screamed money. Her smile was sharp, rehearsed. Everything about her radiated entitlement. "I'm sorry," Lena said automatically. "I didn't realize." "This area is reserved for senior staff," the woman interrupted. "Assistants usually eat downstairs." Lena stood. "I was told to remain close in case Mr. Hale needed anything." The woman's eyes narrowed. "And who told you that?" "Mr. Hale." Silence. Then the woman laughed softly. "Of course he did." She extended a manicured hand. "Claire Whitmore, Director of Strategic Partnerships." Lena shook it. "Lena Morales, Executive Assistant." Claire looked her up and down openly this time. "Interesting choice." "I'm here to work," Lena replied calmly. Claire leaned closer, voice lowering. "Then here's some advice. This building eats people alive. Don't confuse temporary usefulness with belonging." With that, she walked away. Lena exhaled slowly. So that was how it was going to be. The first real test came that afternoon. Victor was scheduled to meet with representatives from Axiom Dynamics, one of Blackridge's most influential partners. The kind of people who didn't wait, didn't compromise, and didn't tolerate mistakes. 10 minutes before the meeting, the lead negotiator called. They were pulling out. On what grounds? Victor demanded over speakerphone. "Reputation risk," the man said smugly. "Your internal restructuring suggests instability." Lena's fingers flew across her tablet. "That's inaccurate," Victor said coldly. "Perception is reality," the negotiator replied. "Unless you can prove otherwise, today we're done." The call ended. The room was silent. "That's a bluff," Victor said, jaw tight. "Not entirely," Lena said carefully. All eyes turned to her. She swallowed, then continued. "They're reacting to a leaked internal memo. I saw chatter about it this morning." Victor's gaze sharpened. "You didn't mention that." "I hadn't confirmed it yet," she said. "But I believe the leak came from a subsidiary that's already under review." "Can you prove it?" one executive snapped. "Yes," Lena said. "If you give me 15 minutes. Claire scoffed. "We don't have time for guesswork." Lena met her eyes. "It's not guesswork." Victor studied Lena for a long moment. "Do it," he said. Lena moved fast, pulling records, cross-referencing timestamps, tracing email metadata. Her world narrowed to logic and patterns. This was familiar territory. This was survival. 14 minutes later, she looked up. The memo was altered, she said. The instability language was added externally. Axiom's own junior analyst forwarded it, likely to pressure renegotiation. Silence fell like a dropped glass. Victor smiled slowly. "Send the evidence," he said. Within minutes, Axiom called back, apologetic, eager, suddenly cooperative. When the meeting ended, Victor turned to the room. "That," he said, "is why she sits where she wants." Claire's expression hardened. Word spread quickly. By the next morning, people stopped whispering around Lena. They whispered about her. Some with curiosity, others with resentment. Then came the humiliation. Victor was out of the office, and Lena was finalizing contracts when an email popped up marked urgent. A department head had scheduled a company-wide meeting, without clearance. Lena replied politely, requesting rescheduling. The response was instant. "You are an assistant. Do not tell me how to run my department." 5 minutes later, the man, Richard Klein, stormed into Victor's office. Lena followed. "This is unacceptable," Richard snapped. "Your assistant just tried to override me." Lena opened her mouth to respond, but Victor, who had just returned, raised a hand. "Explain," Victor said. Richard pointed at Lena. "She's out of her depth." Victor turned to Lena. "Why did you intervene?" "Because the meeting conflicted with a regulatory briefing," Lena said evenly. "And because you instructed me to protect your schedule." Richard laughed. "She thinks she speaks for you now?" Victor's voice dropped. "She does." Richard's smile faltered. "She's overstepping," Richard insisted. "Frankly, her background." "Say it," Victor said quietly. Richard hesitated, then shrugged. "She doesn't belong here." The room went deadly still. Victor stepped closer to Richard. "Do you know why this company exists?" he asked. Richard blinked. To solve problems," Victor cut in. "Not protect egos." He turned to Lena. "What did you find in Richard's department last night?" Lena stiffened. "Sir." "Tell him." She inhaled. "Unreported compliance gaps. Enough to cost us millions." Richard's face drained of color. Victor looked back at him. "You're suspended pending review." Security appeared almost instantly. As Richard was escorted out, His eyes burned into Lena, furious, humiliated. The door closed. Victor exhaled slowly. Then he turned to Lena. Are you okay? The question startled her more than the confrontation. Yes, she said. I think so. Good, he replied. Because this won't be the last time. Later that evening, Lena sat alone at her desk, staring at the city lights. She felt exposed. Powerful people didn't like being challenged, especially by someone they considered invisible. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should know your place. Another followed. This building destroys girls like you. Her hands trembled. She didn't reply. She forwarded the messages to Victor. 2 minutes later, he appeared at her desk. You're not alone, he said firmly. Not here. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. He hesitated, then added, and for the record, you did exactly what I hired you to do. Something inside Lena steadied. They underestimated her. They disrespected her. And they had no idea how dangerous that mistake would become. They tried to break her in public. But the truth exploded louder. By the end of the second week, Lena Morales stopped pretending she didn't feel it. The shift. The tension in the hallways tightened every time she passed. Conversations dropped mid-sentence. Smiles didn't reach eyes. Respect had begun to replace dismissal, but resentment was growing faster. Because humiliation once tasted never forgets. Claire Whitmore had made that very clear. Mr. Hale wants you in the executive briefing room, Claire said one morning, not bothering to hide the edge in her voice. Board-level meeting. Lena looked up from her screen. I wasn't informed. Claire's smile was thin. Strange. Almost like you're not supposed to be there. Victor stepped out of his office just in time to hear it. She's coming, he said calmly. Claire stiffened. With respect, Victor, this is sensitive. So is my schedule, he replied. And she manages it. Claire's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. The briefing room was already full. Investors, legal advisors, executives who had never bothered to learn Lena's name. She took a seat against the wall, notebook open, posture straight. And then the ambush began. Before we proceed, a man at the far end said loudly, I'd like to address the unusual presence in this room. Eyes turned. Lena felt heat crawl up her neck, but she didn't move. Victor leaned back in his chair. Go on. The man cleared his throat. We're discussing international exposure risks. I'm not comfortable doing that in front of administrative staff. Administrative staff. The words were deliberate. Lena waited. Victor didn't look at her. He looked at the man. You're uncomfortable? Yes, the man said. Frankly, optics matter. Victor nodded slowly. You're right. Lena's heart sank. Then Victor added, optics do matter. Which is why I want everyone here to know that the person you just dismissed flagged the Zurich exposure before our analysts did. The room went quiet. And, Victor continued, she also uncovered internal compliance failures that saved us a regulatory disaster. The man's face reddened. I wasn't aware. No, Victor said sharply. You weren't. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Victor turned to Lena. You may speak freely. The permission felt heavy, but earned. Lena stood. There's a misalignment in the South American logistics chain, she said calmly. If left unaddressed, it will cost us both capital and credibility. A murmur rippled through the room. One of the legal advisors leaned forward. That data hasn't been finalized. It has, Lena replied. It just wasn't circulated. She tapped her tablet, projecting documents onto the screen. Numbers. Proof. Receipts. Silence turned to shock. When she sat back down, no one questioned her presence again. But outside the room, the knives came out. The article dropped that afternoon. Blackridge CO accused of favoritism. It spread fast. Anonymous sources. Carefully worded accusations. A subtle implication that Lena's position wasn't earned. Comments exploded. Typical billionaire behavior. Who is she sleeping with? Another diversity hire gone wrong. Lena stared at the screen, stomach hollow. This wasn't just professional sabotage. It was personal. Victor called an emergency meeting. This is targeted, he said coldly. Someone inside leaked this. Claire folded her arms. Optics are bad, Victor. You can't ignore perception. Lena looked up. You want me gone. Claire met her gaze. I want stability. Victor slammed his hand on the table. Enough. He turned to Lena. I should have warned you. Power doesn't like being shared. I can handle it, Lena said quietly. But that night, alone in her apartment, the weight finally crushed her. She sat on the floor, back against the couch, phone buzzing endlessly with notifications she didn't want to read. For the first time in years she cried. Not because she was weak, because she was tired of being strong. Her phone rang. Victor. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I should have protected you better. This isn't your fault, she replied, wiping her face. This is what happens when people think you don't deserve to be in the room. There was a pause. Lena, Victor said carefully, there's something you need to tell me. She closed her eyes. Yes, she said. There is. The next morning, Blackridge Global hosted a live-streamed investor forum. Cameras everywhere. Thousands watching. Claire stood confidently at the podium, presenting damage control. And then Victor stepped forward. Before we proceed, he said into the microphone, I want to address yesterday's article. The room held its breath. I don't believe in secrets, Victor continued. So let's clear something up. He gestured. Lena. Her heart pounded as she walked onto the stage. Victor looked at her, not as an assistant, as an equal. Tell them, he said. Lena took a breath. My name is Lena Morales, she began. And before this job, I consulted anonymously for 3 Fortune 500 companies under a blind contract. A murmur spread. I specialized in risk mitigation. My work prevented 2 major collapses. I remained unnamed because my clients requested discretion. Claire's face went pale. I took this job, Lena continued, because I wanted to build something ethically, not hide behind power. Victor stepped forward. The assistant you underestimated is one of the sharpest strategists I've ever worked with. Cameras zoomed in. Live chat exploded. Wait, what? She's legit. They tried to smear her. Claire froze. The instant karma was brutal. Within hours, the article was debunked. The anonymous source was traced. Claire Whitmore resigned by sunset. The same people who whispered now applauded. But Lena didn't smile. She simply stood there, unbroken. When everything fell apart, she had the power to destroy him, or save them all. The applause faded faster than anyone expected. By the next morning, Blackridge Global was no longer celebrating truth, it was bracing for war. Markets don't care about justice. They care about confidence. And confidence was bleeding. Stock prices dipped. Analysts speculated. Competitors circled like vultures, eager to exploit instability. The same people who applauded Lena on stage now questioned whether Victor Hale had lost control. The irony didn't escape her. People love a redemption story, Victor said grimly in his office, staring at live market feeds. Until it costs them money. Lena stood by the window watching the city wake up beneath them. Then this isn't about me anymore. No, Victor admitted. It never really was. The board meeting was called within hours. Emergency session. No cameras. No spin. Just power. The room was packed with faces that had smiled politely at Lena days earlier. Now they looked at her like she was an equation they didn't like the answer to. We took a reputational hit, one board member said flatly. Because of an assistant. Lena didn't flinch. Victor leaned forward. Because of a smear campaign. That doesn't matter, another snapped. What matters is exposure. And right now she's a liability. Silence thickened. Victor turned to Lena. You don't have to stay. She met his eyes. I know. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Ms. Morales, we've reviewed your background. Lena felt the shift. This was the moment. And, she asked. You withheld material information when you were hired, the chairwoman said. Your consulting history. Your influence. I was never asked, Lena replied calmly. That omission put this company at risk. No, Lena said. The prejudice did. A murmur rippled. The chairwoman's eyes hardened. Be careful. Lena inhaled slowly. I came here to work, she continued. Not to threaten anyone. But if we're discussing risk, then we should talk about the offshore energy deal you approved last quarter. Victor stiffened. Lena. She raised a hand gently. You deserve to know. The board froze. That deal, Lena said, violates international labor standards. It will collapse within 6 months. And when it does, regulators won't just fine you. They'll dismantle you. A board member scoffed. That's speculation. Lena tapped her tablet. Documents filled the screen. Supply chains. Whistleblower reports. Timelines. Proof. The room erupted. This could destroy us, someone whispered. Victor stared at the data, then at Lena. How long have you known? Since before I took the job. The chairwoman leaned forward slowly. Then why didn't you stop it? Lena's voice was steady. Because no one would have listened to an outsider. The room went silent. You listened, she added softly. Eventually. The weight of that landed hard. Victor stood. She stays, he said firmly. Or I walk. Gasp. You'd resign? The chairwoman asked. I'd dismantle my own empire before I let it be built on exploitation, Victor replied. All eyes turned to Lena. She felt it, the power she'd never wanted but now carried. She could end this company. Or save it. I won't stay, Lena said quietly. Victor turned sharply. Lena. Not like this, she continued. Not as a symbol. Or a shield. The board stared. I'll stay, she clarified, if we fix it. All of it. Transparently. Publicly. The chairwoman hesitated. That would cost billions. Yes, Lena said. But it would save lives. Silence stretched. Finally, the chairwoman nodded once. We vote. The decision passed, narrowly. The deal was terminated. An investigation launched. Markets crashed. Then stabilized. Slowly. Painfully. But clean. That night, Lena stood alone in Victor's office. You could have destroyed me, he said quietly. She shook her head. I don't believe in revenge. He studied her. Then what do you believe in? She smiled faintly. Accountability. Victor exhaled. You changed everything. No, Lena replied. You just finally listened. Outside the city glowed. Inside something rare had happened. Power had bowed to principle. They finally saw her worth. But by then she had already changed the world. The world didn't change overnight. It never does. But the morning after Blackridge Global publicly terminated the offshore deal, something subtle shifted. First in headlines, then in conversations, then in the way people looked at Lena Morales when she walked through the building. No more whispers. No more side eyes. Now there was something else. Respect. And guilt. The press called it a bold ethical pivot. Analysts argued over whether Victor Hale was reckless or visionary. Social media, however, was far less divided. Clips of Lena's investor forum speech went viral. She stood there like she'd been waiting her whole life for that moment. They tried to erase her, and she made history instead. This is what leadership looks like. Lena didn't read most of it. She was too busy working. Because while the world argued, Blackridge Global was rebuilding, contracts renegotiated, systems audited, partnerships restructured. It was exhausting, relentless, and unforgiving. And for the first time, Lena wasn't behind the scenes. She was at the table. One afternoon, as she finalized a compliance framework, Victor stopped by her desk. You should see this, he said. She followed him into the boardroom. Every seat was filled. The chairwoman stood. Ms. Morales, she said formally, please sit. Lena hesitated, then did. The chairwoman folded her hands. We misjudged you. No excuses. No justifications. Just truth. You were treated unfairly, she continued. And worse, you were underestimated. Lena said nothing. We'd like to offer you a new role, the chairwoman said. Chief Ethics and Strategy Officer. The room held its breath. Lena looked at Victor. He nodded, once. She stood. Thank you, Lena said calmly. But I have conditions. A few eyebrows rose. I won't be the only one who looks like me in this room, she continued. Diversity isn't a headline, it's a system. And I won't be used as proof of progress while others are shut out. Silence. Then slowly the chairwoman smiled. Agreed. The vote was unanimous. That evening, Lena stood on her apartment balcony, the same one where she'd once cried on the floor, watching the city lights flicker on. Victor joined her, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You didn't have to stay, he said quietly. She accepted the mug. Neither did you. He smiled faintly. I learned something. She raised an eyebrow. Only one thing? He laughed softly. That power without humility is just noise. They stood there, comfortable in the silence. You know, Victor added, they used to say this company was untouchable. Lena took a sip. Turns out it just needed the right hands. Weeks later, Lena received an email from a young woman applying for an internship. I saw you speak, the message read. I didn't think people like me belonged in rooms like that, until now. Lena stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she replied. You do. And when you get there, make space for someone else. The cycle began again, but this time differently. Blackridge Global didn't become perfect. But it became honest. And Lena Morales? She never needed revenge. Because the greatest justice wasn't watching them fall. It was watching them learn.